Welcome to My Body, My Pod, a Reproductive Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Mini Timmaraju, president of Reproductive Freedom for All. Today, we're joined by an absolute powerhouse and a true reproductive freedom champion, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, the first woman of color elected to Congress from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. As co-chair of the Congressional Reproductive Freedom Caucus, Congresswoman Pressley has been at the forefront, fighting to protect abortion access, defend our bodily autonomy, and push back against extremist attacks on our freedoms. And she's one of the movement's most fearless and effective leaders in Congress, consistently speaking truth to power and working to dismantle the systemic barriers that keep essential care out of reach. We are sharing this conversation today, June 24th, on the 4-year anniversary of the catastrophic Dobbs decision. 4 years ago today, a radical Supreme Court majority ripped away our constitutional right to abortion and unleashed a public health and human rights crisis across this country. And despite what anti-abortion politicians might hope, Americans have not moved on. Roughly 8 in 10 Americans believe abortion should be legal in at least some circumstances, and election after election, voters have made clear that they do not want politicians making decisions about their bodies, their families, and their futures. So fast forward to now, anti-abortion politicians continue to push bans and restrictions while voters continue to push back. In red states, blue states, and battleground states alike, Americans have repeatedly voted to protect reproductive freedom whenever they've had that chance. Today, we're going to talk about where the fight stands 4 years into this post-Roe reality and why this moment calls for leaders who won't just say they're with us, but are willing to meet the urgency of this moment with the courage, conviction, and action it demands. Congresswoman Pressley, thank you so much for joining us in this incredibly critical moment in our history.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. And I don't know, I'm a little uncomfortable with you calling me Congresswoman. We are a movement family. I'm so grateful for your leadership. And I'm so grateful that you have created this platform, at a time when there is so much mis and disinformation.
Oh my gosh.
It's so important that people are hearing from trusted, well-informed voices. And you are certainly chief amongst them. So my buddy, my pod, let's go.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. It's why we did this. But it's also so important for us to have you. I want folks to hear it directly from the leader of this work in Congress. You and I had Congresswoman DeGette also recently are really leading the fight in the House. And I think we're seeing a really exciting moment of generational change as well. And leaders who've been there for a long time, like Congresswoman DeGette, but then leaders who are now bold and unapologetic and are bringing that new energy and lived reality to Congress. I want to talk a little bit about the caucus, why this is so important right now. Why did you feel it was so important? There's a lot of issues you care about, a lot of issues that affect Massachusetts, a lot of issues that affect your district. You've been a fighter. You were on the city council. You have a long history of public service. Why reproductive freedom? Why is it one of your marquee issues? Okay,
well, let me level set a little bit. So I've been in Congress for 8 years. And I was elected to the 116th Congress. They often refer to us as the majority makers. So I'm very fortunate that I came in a majority. And, they would enumerate all of these sort of bragging points about our class, the majority makers, the most diverse representative Congress in the history of Congress, on gender, on gender identity, so many things. And it was the first pro-choice majority Congress.
That's important.
And that was a talking point.
Because people don't know that.
It was the first pro-choice majority Congress. Now, all that being said, because it's so important to lift up, I don't want there to be any erasure. I'm so grateful for the leadership, long-standing, steadfast, of Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who had long been a mentor of mine. In fact, when I was on the Boston City Council, we worked together and I was able to pass a unanimous resolution there to repeal Hyde. And that's when I started doing, some of this movement work. But Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Congresswoman Diana DeGette, Congresswoman Judy Chu, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, they have been incredible. And so when I was elected to this 116th Congress, the first pro-choice majority Congress in the history of Congress, because of my work on the council, my relationship with Congresswoman Barbara Lee, I was appointed as chair of the Abortion Rights and Access Task Force. So that was sort of my entry. And then immediately started working very closely with Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez on repealing the Hyde Amendment, because this is what is so important.
And this is the Each Act, which
the Each Act.
She was the champion of, and then she asked both of you to join in championing this important
Correct, because at that time,
Yeah.
Roe was still the law of the land, but Roe has always been the floor, not the ceiling. And even with Roe being the law of the land, abortion access, which is health care, was not equitable.
Right.
The Hyde Amendment is racist and discriminatory, and no one should be denied access to health care based upon their zip code, their race, their income, or how they pay their insurance. But the point is that we were in the majority, and when you have the power,
Yes.
you have to use it. When you have the power, you have to use it. And so it was important to me that we not just say that we're the first pro-choice majority Congress, but that we put that into action, that we test that and push it. It's hard for people to believe, but it wasn't that long ago where many members in the Democratic caucus did not want to say the word abortion.
Well, I remember in 2016, so thank you for correcting the record. For me, when I refer to generational change, I think a lot of people in Congress don't understand, how much has changed since your class got elected, how fundamentally your class, and I'm glad you pointed out it was the first pro-choice majority class, how fundamentally you have reshaped the culture of Congress, the way things are getting done. It's pretty significant, and I want to talk about some of that too.
I appreciate you saying that, and I also, again, the progress that has been made is a testament to a coalition.
Yes.
Of people who have been in the trenches. This is a broad and diverse intersectional coalition. And, I really do believe the people closest to the pain should be the closest to the power, driving and informing the policy making. And so I've always sought to govern in a way that is cooperative, that is symbiotic, where you are not legislating from Congress down, but from community up. When you lean in and actively listen to the people closest to the pain, whether that's those personally impacted, personally invested, or advocates, you better understand the nuance, the intersectionality, but it's also how you harness the best solutions. So I just immediately got to work in that role. At that time, it was the Pro-Choice Caucus.
Right.
And I was chairing the Abortion Rights and Access Task Force in this.
So you were saying abortion.
Yes.
In the name.
Saying the name. And again, this is the most diverse representative Congress in the history of Congress at that time. When it came to race, when it came to gender, just across the board. And I wanted those talking points to mean something, because what is the point of having a more representative government? It's not for, more diverse pictures. It's not for contrived moments of kumbaya. It's not so we can pat ourselves on the back about how progressive we are. It's because when you have a diversity of perspective, opinion, and thought, different questions are called, but also new strategies are engaged. People lead intersectional lives. So you cannot, that's why this fight that we're in right now for fair representation, you can't have a government.
Voting rights.
Right, voting rights. Redistricting.
Right.
You cannot have a government formed by the people if you don't have a government formed by the people. So this class, and my working closely with the chairs of then the Pro-Choice Caucus, we were able to repeal Hyde, working with again, when you have the power, you have to use it. So in this moment, what matters to me is that we keep the momentum going.
Yes.
That our organizing has everything and nothing to do with who occupies the Oval Office. It's a movement. And we can't allow it to
predates this
exactly,
and it will continue well past
exactly.
His
it can't
time.
Be static,
Right.
Can't be complacent, it can't be status quo, and it can't be limited to an election cycle. This is movement work. And so we've made great strides when we were in the majority. And now with this hostile administration working actively to advance this extremist agenda, all laid out in Project 2025. But we know because they're in it for the long haul. So this has been...
Oh, it took them 50 years.
This has been, a slow burn,
right,
if you will. But they've been very intentional. My granddaddy used to say, plan your work and work your plan. And that's what we need to do. We have to match that energy, plan our work and work our plan, and be in it for the long haul. So in the midst of this fascist administration, this extremist agenda to advance a nationwide abortion ban. They have, sneaky riders and ways in which they keep trying to slowly advance this, beginning with the falling of Roe. So they've come for, everything. Today I was working on the floor with the vice chair of the Reproductive Freedom Caucus, and we'll talk about that renaming in a moment, with Lizzie Fletcher of Texas to advance a discharge petition on right to contraceptives.
So they're coming after all of it.
They're coming after all of it. So whether you're talking about mifepristone, abortion medication, Plan B, birth control, IVF, abortion access, all of it. And just our anything that supports reproductive health. So this is,
Black maternal health.
Exactly.
Maternal health in general, maternal mortality.
They're defunding anything that has to do with women's health, preventative, and otherwise, research, all those sorts of things. So, if they are anti-freedom, and it is an anti-freedom agenda. Somehow they've co-opted these things, but it's a perversion of them, because you can't say that you're for freedom and you're patriots when all freedom begins with the body. So if you want to control what people do with their bodies, you want to control the books people read, you want to degrade and threaten and undermine the free press and free speech.
Restrict the way that folks exercise their right to vote.
Exactly. The list is hard to keep up.
Right.
But
they are the anti-freedom
It is an
party.
Anti-freedom agenda. And so some people might feel defeatist in that and say, what can we do? Because in their flood the zone strategy, it is so overwhelming. But we have to be, again, match their energy. We have to be just as
you said, plan
relentless
the work and plan the work.
Plan the work and work the plan. And so, words matter, language matters. And so before the 119th Congress, Diana DeGette and I, and now Congresswoman Lee is now Mayor Lee, but we had a conversation about changing the name to the Reproductive Freedom Caucus. And so in the 8 years that I've been in Congress, we were successful in removing Hyde.
Passing the Women's Health Protection Act.
Passing
twice.
the Women's Health Protection Act twice. And people are saying abortion.
Huge.
That is huge.
No, it is huge. Because when I first took this job, I won't name names, all very lovely, well-intentioned people.
Sure.
Some of them from your class, like not even like older members of Congress, right? We're still saying things like safe, legal, and rare. And we were like, oh, okay, we have some work to do on the message. And these are all folks who were on our side, but just didn't have the vocabulary to understand like how to communicate effectively on this issue. And what you and I both know is when you lose language like that, when you use language like that, it stigmatizes abortion care, which is just health care.
Which is just health care. And we remind, I would be reminding my colleagues all the time, we all know and love someone who's had an abortion.
Correct.
But
going back, so going full circle to Dobbs, and today, the day we're releasing this pod, it took the Dobbs decision, and this is the horrible reality of it, to really fundamentally shift some Democrats in our own, in the party, at the state and local level and in Congress, and awaken the sleeping giant of the reproductive freedom majority in this country. Because most folks had not been confronted with the idea that Roe could ever go away. You knew it. We knew it. You're part of the movement. We're part of the movement. We've been saying this since Planned Parenthood v. Casey in the early 90s. Like, this is the road to destruction. They are planning to take away Roe. But we were called hysterical. Folks thought we were, there's no way. Even right before the leak in the Dobbs decision, we were being told, oh, that feels extreme. This court's not going to do that. Every single one of these justices has shown up in the Senate in their confirmation hearings and said they support the precedent of Roe. But we knew better. Y'all were prepared. We were prepared. But the majority of Americans did not know that. We had a really big believability gap going right into the Dobbs decision. Then the Dobbs decision happens. How did that change?
It's very generous of you to say a believability gap. It just feels like nonstop gaslighting. It's still. I mean, you think we're we're accused of being hyperbolic,
hysterical,
dramatic, and all the things. But in any event,
overreacting. I still get those. I still get.
Look, we're devastated by the outcome, so it doesn't give us, it's no reward or self-satisfaction that we called it and that we were right.
Absolutely not. It's the worst possible way to have won some of these fights.
Absolutely.
With public opinion. This is the worst possible way for us to finally be able to prove that the majority of Americans want reproductive freedom and abortion access. But now we're here. So what was that like for you in Congress?
Okay, so it's wild because my daughter is in her senior year. We just marked her high school graduation. She will be a freshman at Howard in the fall, baby
so
bison.
Exciting.
Yes, but it's hard to believe, but when we were at her 8th grade graduation, started the day out with such hope and promise and we were just marking this milestone, and while I was seated on those hot tin bleachers, we learned of the Dobbs decision. And it just, even if there was a foreshadowing, and a foreboding sense that this is where we were going, pre the leak and after the leak, it was real. And I just felt so sobered by that and so heavy that my daughter had started the day, her graduation day, with more rights in the morning than she went to bed with. And
the beginning of beginning of her reproductive, phase of
absolutely.
Life, right? I mean, that's a critical time.
Even in our, as we were, starting to make decisions about where she would pursue higher education, it's her choice alone, but I certainly was leaning in very heavily and saying, I would not like for you to go to school someplace where you can't access healthcare if you need it. I mean, it just, it sharpened, a lot of things. I think when we talk about policy, you talk about democracy, you talk about freedom. Yeah. It's very abstract for people.
Yeah.
Until someone takes a sledgehammer to that shit.
Right.
It's very abstract. Policies feel like something static that lives in documents and on shelves. And no, who you vote for determines who's elected, who wins. Who wins determines the policies, and the policies determine who lives, who dies, who survives, and who thrives. I remember taking it back to Hillary when she would talk about the Supreme Court. People were so disconnected and removed from that. But it
felt like an abstraction.
That's what I'm saying. It's so abstract for people. But when you
you're right.
But it's same thing with the federal workforce. I mean, federal workforce.
No one would believe
democracy.
No one could believe
the Supreme Court, freedom. Policy. All this seems so abstract until it is actively threatened, until it is gutted, until it is undermined. And then you realize, this really is a matter of life and death. And so I think what happened is that there was public outcry in response to that. And then elected officials from across the ideological and political spectrum then responded to that public outcry. And that's why, even though I've been in Congress 8 years, on the city council for 8 years, was an aide for 16 years, 11 with Senator Kerry, in this, working in the Senate, 4 in the House, it's been my experience, and this is not to undermine in any way the significance of what we do, but government rarely leads. But it does respond. It does. And that's why we have to plan our work and work our plan and be unrelenting in our pressure. We have to match their energy. So the public outcry in the wake of the striking down of Roe with that Dobbs decision, I think created such a groundswell and such a palpable fear. It was so real.
Yeah. Yeah, it made something
took a crisis to bring people along.
Right, and it made something rhetorical very palpable.
Yes.
Very visceral.
Yes.
And so now God, I can't believe it's been 4 years since the Dobbs decision. Mm-hmm. That is deeply, deeply disturbing. That's 4 years. I'm from Texas. That's actually longer than 4 years because we had SB 8 before Dobbs. It's 4+ years of women in my home state not having rights, not having freedoms, dying, not having access. We don't even know the documented deaths because the state of Texas is not documenting them or sharing that documentation. There's so many compounded crises as a result of the Dobbs decision, and we are now living with it. Mm-hmm.
It's compounded, and I also think that, sadly, people have normalized abortion bans and that impact. It's not making the headlines anymore, but that's not because there aren't still women dying. It's just that it doesn't receive that level of attention and visibility. And that's why what you're doing here is so very, very important.
So I want to talk to you. I want to come back to that because that's a really big, issue we're grappling with as a movement and as an org with our candidates. Like, how do we get the impact is still the same. It's actually compounded and worse. When voters hear about reproductive rights under attack, they are motivated, including Republicans, but they're not hearing about it. But first, I want to go back to something you said about the intersections. Let's talk about Black maternal health. And you founded the Black Maternal Health Caucus, and obviously it overlaps incredibly with reproductive freedom. But we are, before Dobbs, but compounded by Dobbs, to our earlier point, we are in a Black maternal health crisis that is only getting worse. And it's not an accident that the documented deaths post-Dobbs, the majority of them are Black women. Can you talk to us about the Black maternal health crisis and what your work looks like now?
Sure. Well, again, because it's so important to me to ensure that I don't contribute to any erasure, I have to acknowledge the leadership of Congresswoman Robin Kelly and Lauren Underwood and Alma Adams, who initiated the founding of that caucus. So I'm a founding member, but it was really their leadership. And I also think that tells a story, again, about the importance of representation. It goes beyond symbolism.
Yeah.
I really do look forward to a day where people do not have to relive their trauma to compel action from their government. But in the meantime, I'm grateful for every family member, every spouse, every loved one who told their story. And that ultimately did result in the establishing of this caucus. And we've developed a suite of bills, what we call a momnibus, to get at this crisis. And really, because of advocates, because of impacted families, because of the Congressional Black Caucus, and this dedicated Black maternal Health Caucus specifically. I gotta make sure I'm getting the name right. There's so many.
Congressional Black Maternal Health Caucus?
Yes, okay. Say Black, exactly.
Black.
Okay.
Black.
Exactly. But again, it's the power of representation. It was completely mainstreamed. And this is what it is to be a canary in the coal mine. You are at the intersection bearing the burden. And then when you raise your voice, often those issues, there are efforts to marginalize that, to act as if there was anything done on a policy in that vein, that it would be regressive in its impact, because people question how many people stand to really benefit from this. How many people are really,
those questions you were getting
are really affected
about the momnibus?
Yes, and but the thing is, though, I have found that shame is not a motivator. So that is never my starting point. If shame were a motivator,
we
would not have this fool in the Oval Office. Okay, so shame is not a motivator. What I seek to do as someone who wants to honor that longstanding tradition of Black women, as justice seekers and truth tellers and movement builders, is to build coalition, meet people where they are, and bring them along in this stakehold in one another's humanity and dignity and safety. How could you not care about Black maternal health? Everybody either you're a mother, or you have one.
Right.
So
exactly.
This is the same way I feel about the Equal Rights Amendment, and that's the conversation for we
need a whole other hour.
A whole nother hour for
about
that.
the larger gender equity crisis.
Exactly, but
it
really is all connected. But so we took something that people were completely unaware of. That then when they were aware of it, they wondered, how many people were really impacted by it and what needed to be their stakehold, in this. Was it really a crisis? And then that was proven, sadly, through elevated tragedy. And then that issue was championed all the way to the White House. All the way to the White House. And so, again, I'm just grateful to impacted families and the advocates. Now, what brings me to that issue specifically is that my paternal grandmother, Grandma Carrie, and I do have her picture on a shelf in my home because I have an ancestor wall. I never had the privilege of knowing her. My grandmother died in the 1950s, giving birth to my father's youngest brother, my uncle. And it just sent their family into a tailspin of foster care and things like that. There were 6 of them. Very devastating.
Right.
But the fact that my grandmother died in the 1950s in childbirth, and that, here we could be in 2026, and this still be the case and worsening is shameful. Is shameful. And any person of conscience should give a damn about that.
Right. And to your point about the canary in the coal mine, I think we just need to spell it out for folks. What happens to Black women happens to them first, and then it impacts the rest of us. You can't, right? I assume that's the point you're making.
That is the point that I'm making.
And versus shaming.
That is the point that I'm making.
Showing the interconnection in public health.
We see that right now. If you look at the federal workforce, so there's 700,000 Black women that are unemployed right now. Black women represented 12% of the federal workforce. So if you had ever interfaced with housing and urban development, national, for fair housing laws, or USAID, or the Consumer
Postal
Financial
Service.
Protection Bureau, anything.
Right,
Department of Education, if you send in a FAFSA application, more likely than not, it was a Black woman processing that. So unemployment for the Black worker, right now is at, 6% for Black men, for Black workers, period. And then for Black women, cresting at almost 7%. But overall unemployment is at like 4.3%. So, what we're saying is, hey, this is a crisis for Black women, families, and futures, but this harm is coming for everyone. But that's what I mean when I say we're the canary in the coal mine. We bear the brunt.
You're the harbinger of what's about to happen.
Exactly. We're the harbinger.
Yeah.
We're the harbingers. So you should care just because you should give a damn. But
because we have basic humanity.
But out of your own self-interest, you should care
right.
because that harm is coming for you too. Oppression, marginalization, injustice is even if it falls harder on some more than others, it's not to be contained. And that's what you see happening here with this anti-freedom agenda.
It's so interesting because it's a similar, we had Stacey Abrams on, and we talked about all the steps to, the destruction of democracy,
yes.
right? And one of the first attacks on every society that's had a democracy crisis is attacks on women, right? And so the Dobbs decision was also a harbinger for the rest of society on all of these attacks on democracy, on voting rights, on our right to exist, right? Mm-hmm. All communities. If they can get away with doing this to women, they can get away with doing it to everybody. So the Black maternal health crisis is even more refined example of that. But when we allowed it to happen, when we allowed Black women to die, and we allowed the majority of Americans to lose their ability to control their body and make decisions about their own bodies, we opened the door for all these other attacks on civil society, on fundamental freedoms, on our basic rights.
I agree. And I think that the suffering of women, the second-class status of women, are never fully realizing our full citizenship in this society is so normalized.
Completely. It's like it's an assumption.
It is normalized. It is conflated as a part of our identity experience in this country. It is such an acceptable norm that it is
an acceptable form of bigotry.
Yes, that it is unremarkable. It's like, well, that's like your lot in life, and that's just what you all do, And I have to remind, when you start going back and realizing it wasn't even until the 1970s where we could open our own,
get a credit card, put your name on a lease.
I mean, all of these things, like,
correct.
And so I have to remind folks, like, listen, I want to speak from a place of empowerment, but please know that our marginalization and oppression, this second class status that we have, it has been legislated, you're marginalized if you have had to litigate, legislate, agitate for those things that are a birthright for other people. And so that's why, again, it all comes back to me, to the Equal Rights Amendment. It's, whatever fight you're talking about, whether you're talking about reproductive freedom or reproductive justice, or whether you're talking about access, to healthcare, access to the ballot, whether you're talking about pay equity, whether you're talking about domestic violence, whether you're talking about sexual assault, it all comes back to that equal rights under the law.
We're putting gender equity in the Constitution.
In the Constitution. Shall not be denied.
We're not in the Constitution.
It's 12 equal rights under the law. Right. Shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex. That's it. I mean, I'd like to think that if that was in the Constitution, and we believe that threshold has been, met. We can debate the legitimacy of ratification, if you will. There was this arbitrary deadline, and again, we won't go down that rabbit hole. But I do wonder, if we already had that, could the Supreme Court have operated with such recklessness and targeted discrimination and denial?
Right. So, if the right to abortion was through a right to gender equity that we were in the Constitution versus a right to privacy.
Yes.
Yeah, it would be more durable. I mean, This is the argument behind all the state ERAs that are passing now, even beyond trying to ratify a national ERA.
That's right. Well,
New York just did this, right?
Yeah.
Because they want to put something stronger than just a right to abortion or a right to privacy, right? It's tenuous. And we've seen this court has already indicated, signaled Clarence Thomas, that they're ready to go after all the other enumerated rights that come from privacy, right?
Yeah,
so we have to gear up. So I agree.
The Trump justices, the Supreme Court, have been enlisted as co-conspirators and accomplices in this agenda. We desperately
Let's talk about
need
court reform.
We need court reform. We need to expand the court. We need to restore integrity, ethics. So there needs to be ethics reform. And personally, I don't think these should be lifetime appointments.
Term limits.
Yeah, we need term limits
expand the court ethics reform.
You're speaking my language.
Code of ethics. Well, we've endorsed that platform. And if you're a member of Reproductive Freedom for All, you're lobbying on that platform, along with codifying a federal right to abortion, along with getting rid of discriminatory barriers to care for immigrants, because we have to have all of it, right? We have to pass the bills, but we got to protect them. And this court has shown willingness to completely override Congress, right? So we need all the reforms all at once.
The Constitution seems to be a suggestion.
They don't care to
this Supreme Court. There's no respect for, Article 1, Congress as a co-equal branch. I mean, on any issue.
So court reform is critical. Passing federal legislation is critical. We're in the fight for our lives with this midterm election. So I want to bring it back to the election.
Okay.
Especially because we get to do that here. We're across the street at the DNC. You talked about how we're not breaking through on abortion anymore. Media's not covering it. These stories aren't penetrating. We're out in the field, doing research and polling and talking to voters door to door. We're about to announce, we will announce on this day, our campaign for the midterms. It's going to be called My Body, My Ballot. We are having a week of action right now in 5 states with volunteers across the country, knocking on doors, talking to voters, trying to educate them person to person about the abortion crisis, because our research has shown when folks understand, including Republicans and independents, what's actually happening, that women are dying, they are unequivocal about being against those candidates. It's still the top disqualifier for Republicans. It's still one of the most popular and identifiable qualities for a Democrat. They may not trust Democrats on affordability yet. They may not trust Democrats on foreign policy yet, but they trust that Democrats are good on reproductive freedom and Republicans are bad.
Though this is an affordability issue.
It is an affordability. Thank you. You took us there. So we also want candidates talking about abortion, talking about the intersection, and connecting it to affordability. The most important decision, financial decision a person's going to make is whether they're going to have a child, whether they're going to have a family. How do we get candidates talking about these issues and understanding this is something Democrats can and should be winning on? We got to get them back to where we were right after 2022.
Well, one, we keep organizing because organized power is realized power. Secondly, as voters, call the question. Make this a part of the criteria in your determination as an informed voter about who you'll support. Make sure that the candidates know that this is a priority for you. And when it has won, on the ballot in red states and
in red districts,
in red districts, you don't know what's motivating the person. Is it just a matter of freedom? For some, that's the message that resonates. Again, all freedom begins with your body. So, for some, it's just a matter of freedom and bodily autonomy. And for others, it might just be a matter of healthcare justice. And for others, maybe they've been personally impacted in some way. But those conversations are so key. Yeah, in my organization, we call that, that deep democracy work, that meaningful engagement that is not about trying to persuade anyone. It's about, again, meeting people where they are, actively listening, and then empowering them with accurate information. Because again, there's so many bad actors and so much mis and disinformation. It's disingenuous. And it's weaponized. But this is a winning issue. That is the point.
Yes.
It is a winning issue. And
but you have to spend time doing it.
You have to spend time doing that. But I mean, look, a nation of forced birth in a country that does not have universal child care or paid leave, in the midst of compounded economic hardship.
Maternal care. Postpartum.
Maternal care.
Prenatal and postpartum.
I mean,
we're not even doing
that part.
We're not even doing
We're not even doing that.
No, maternal health deserts.
Yeah.
The states with the abortion bans are also the ones with the maternal health deserts.
That's right. Yeah, if you just overlay,
so
you can see.
And that's also part of the economic message, right? You need paid family leave. You need a care economy if you're going to actually have reproductive freedom.
Exactly. So it is it's a healthcare issue. It is an economic issue.
So how do we get your colleagues to all? You do the work of organizing through your caucus. How do we get your colleagues to understand this? How do we work together to get your colleagues to understand this in advance of the midterms? And this isn't just because of a movement goal. This is because I want reproductive freedom champions to win, and we need you to win back the House and the Senate so we can actually get shit done.
Yeah, well, I think it's so important that we're working with you and that we have accurate information that we can share with our caucus that affirms or reminds them that this is a winning issue. I think there has been
and I just want to say, I don't want to be perceived as criticizing the caucus
I don't feel that
leadership.
Yeah.
I have a lot of deep gratitude for all they're doing to champion our freedoms. But I talk to a lot of consultants and a lot of pundits and a lot of reporters who are like,
that's
abortion's not.
That's what I was going to say.
Abortion's not the top 3 issue anymore, Minnie. So like, stop trying to make my candidate talk about abortion. And I'm like, actually, let me explain to you how you it's your best advantage.
Yeah. And I'd wonder, I mean, I've never been one to make decisions based on
polling. That's because my guess is that's because you are an organizer at heart and you know your district.
Well, I'd like to think so. I mean, my experience was that, you can't poll transformation. So when an Overton window is shifting, it's not something that can be polled. It's something that you bear witness to, when you are proximate. You know it's unfolding, but everyone else hasn't caught up yet. So even when they say to you, Minnie, this isn't top 3 issues, well, how are you posing the question?
Well, that is what we say.
Yeah. How are you posing the question? You
Right.
know, so again, we should be talking about it within the context of affordability, and that it is as much an economic issue as it is a healthcare issue. I don't know how someone could say this isn't a bread and butter kitchen table issue. How many mouths you have to feed, whether or not you can survive childbirth and go on to raise your children. If and when you do decide that you want to grow a family, if, when, and how. I mean, it's your choice, but there's, certainly economic implications.
Absolutely. You've said so many gems. I wrote some of them down. I just want to repeat them. The closest to pain should be the closest to power. That was so good. I feel like we need to make it a t-shirt, make it a bumper sticker.
Oh, so funny you would say that. I do sell
them. Do you have them?
Of course.
Okay, well, we're going to put a link to that.
That's my ethos.
I love it.
That's my ethos.
I'm going to wear I need
that
shirt.
Closest to the power, driving and informing the policymaking.
Oh my God, so good. Government rarely leads.
But it does respond.
But it does respond. That's important. We the people lead. And we hold you accountable as our elected officials to respond. Plan the work and work the plan. Shame is not a motivator. I really like that. All of it is great, but to me, it's like such good reminders as we continue to organize. So yeah, we're gonna share that with our action councils across the country. These are good organizing principles. These are good reminders on the Dobbs anniversary as we have survived, but not all of our sisters have survived the crisis that has unfolded.
Well, I just listen, I just appreciate your spirit is indomitable. You are indefatigable. You are a North Star for so many of us in so many ways. You have not wavered in any way. And that is so important. I mean, I don't want to in any way downplay the importance of hope. In the same way that people can run whole campaigns and advance extremist agendas, all motivated and fueled by hate and cruelty. Radical love, infinite hope. These things are very important. I remember during the pandemic, one of my siblings in the movement, Brittany Packnett Cunningham. I'm an Aquarius, so I love a good affirmation, and so she had gifted me this affirmation. I choose the discipline of hope over the ease of cynicism. And I choose fortitude over fatalism. I say it every day. I choose the discipline of hope over the ease of cynicism. And I choose fortitude over fatalism. So we can't, underestimate the power of infinite hope, of radical love, of mutual aid. We talked a lot about all the things that are giving us pause and keeping us up at night, but I do also want to speak about the people and the neighbors that inspire me every day, because they are still fighting and they are showing up with incredible demonstrations and blueprints of how to organize and how to provide care in this moment.
Mutual aid is critical to how we survive Dobbs.
So we have to acknowledge that, because in a
you're
fascist state, they want you to believe that this dark, divided, dystopian view that they have for this country, this view that they have where they try to legislate deservedness, that it is an inevitability. That's what they want you to believe. That's what they want you to feel.
Hopeless.
So it is not only okay, it is essential that we keep radically dreaming, that we keep working, that we keep organizing. If you do believe that we are truly in an unprecedented moment, you have to match the energy then with unprecedented organizing, unprecedented mobilizing, unprecedented legislating, agitating, litigating, and unprecedented hope.
And unprecedented love.
Unprecedented love.
I think that's a great place to end. Ayanna Pressley, that was a sermon. That was a word. There's so much.
Well, I'll be back.
That's so much. Well, I would like to go on. Let's go on the road. Let's go on the road. We've got some good. We've got some good trouble to make in some critical battleground races, so that you can come back in power and actually really move some of these big, bold.
I will be there. I'm going to be heavy in the South.
Okay, let's go. So we got to protect some of our friends in the South.
Absolutely.
We've got a lot of work to do in the South. Thank you so much.
I follow you anywhere, sister.
Well, vice versa.
Especially if grits are in the equation. Okay.
Is that your favorite Southern food?
Listen,
we didn't get to ask any of the fun questions.
Yes, but listen, I did have a little bit of when Twitter was the thing, I did have a Gritsgate scenario.
Oh.
Hashtag Gritsgate
Okay,
with
I'm gonna have to
Bakari
look that
sellers because I don't believe in sweet grits. I believe in savory grits.
I'm on your team.
If you're going to make
savory.
sweet grits, you should be having cream of wheat.
Correct.
Okay? This is just butter, salt, and pepper. That's
little hot sauce.
Okay, maybe.
A little hot sauce.
Maybe a little. But anyway, I'll see you on the road, sister.
Okay. We'll make sure we got the grits. We got the savory. It's just been awesome to be with you.
Thank you.
Thanks again to everyone listening. Thank you. Remember, you matter. You have a role to play in this important work. This moment is hard, but we cannot give up. So text POD, P-O-D, to 59791 to join us in the fight. Help us hit the road with Ayanna Pressley. We got a lot of work to do, folks, but there's more hope than fear. There's more to be optimistic about than to despair. And until next time.